since this is the last Sunday that we'll hear this, Christos Anesti. Christ is risen. And again, He Christe eri. It's got to put the Celtic in there. All right. So two things I just want to mention today about this gospel reading, because it comes from the Gospel of John. And the Gospel of John, as those of you that have been involved in the Zoom Bible study know, John is the theological gospel. It is the gospel that we get the majority of our theology from. And so when we read from John, there is a richness there that gives us who we are as Orthodox, and to a large extent gives who we are as Christians. In this particular reading about the blind man, there is the first message that comes through, which is the question that was asked. Right at the beginning of this, we have the question, who sinned? So automatically, there is a connection in the Jewish mind of the time that there must be some relationship of what has happened to him and now sin. And so throughout the Old Testament, we find examples of this where sin and sickness are connected. Okay, so we see now in Elijah, when his sons pass away for the sins that they did, we see many who were blind, not many, but we see examples of those who were blind, and that is then related then to their sin. But here we have somebody born blind from birth. So this is a very different situation. This is not somebody made blind through some action. So the first thing is, the question automatically is, there must be some sin here. But the question is, did this man sin, or did his parents sin? And so what is Jesus' answer? Jesus doesn't answer the question directly, as in many cases in John. He doesn't say, well, it's not the son because he was born blind, but there was something that inherited from the parents. So now, because of the parents did something, now the son. He doesn't say that. What he said was, it was not this man that sinned or his parents. And so the first thing that we have to take away from this is that our sickness does not relate necessarily to that which we have done. Now, that doesn't mean in all cases. If you are an alcoholic, then yes, the disease and the sickness that you get from liver failure or kidney failure, whatever that is, yes, that can be attributed to the sin of too much alcohol. If you do too much drugs, okay, then yes, you can connect and make a correlation between the physical sickness and the mental sickness that you have together with the sin. So yes, sometimes sin is connected, but that's not because of something our parents did. That's something that out of our own free will, we have chosen to do. But at the same time, we have to be careful, because there are many cases where we cannot connect it to sin. Many, many children have died as infants of cancer. Do we blame now the sin of the child? No. Do we blame it on the parents because the parents have done something wrong? No. We don't know what God's will is in those cases. But we as Christians, through the words of Jesus Christ, know that these things happen, so what? He goes on to say, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him. So sometimes it is because this is the will of God for some reason. In many cases, most of you have heard of situations where a young child dies from some type of disease, and the siblings of that child, the brothers or sisters, they go on to become doctors. And they change course and they become doctors, or in some kind of field where they look and develop cures. if somebody dies from drug abuse or alcoholism or something else, they go and they become counselors, and because they have firsthand experience with that, and they can go and help others. So sometimes we don't see directly the will of God at the moment that happens, but later on in life, we see how God works these wonderful miracles. So this is there's a wealth of understanding in this gospel reading, but the one important idea is that we do not make a connection directly with sin and then with sickness. If we cause it through our own will by doing things we shouldn't, then yes, we can make that connection. But God still stands to always be there to have mercy on us and then to help to heal us. But sometimes things happen that we don't understand at the present moment. The second thing I want to bring out is a little bit more of a theological point, but I thought it was of interest. In the Divine Liturgy, we say, "En protis mniste Kyrie to archiepiscopimon," and we say, right, Nicholas. And then we say, "Grant that he may serve your holy churches in peace. Keep in safe, honorable health for many years." And the word that is used here is orthotomundos, to cut, to dissect, to write, and that's why you don't hear me say rightfully teach the word of your truth, which can be correct, but the direct translation is rightfully dissect the word of your truth. And here we have a perfect example of why we say that prayer. Because as most of you know, the gospel reading has no punctuation in it. If you look at the original Gospels, there's no punctuation. It's all capital letters. We have to decide, as the church, where do I put the comma? Where do I put the period? Where does it go? Because, as you know in English, if you don't say something with the correct pronunciation, you can say something insulting, you can say something incorrect, you can say something damaging. And here we have an example of that. Jesus answered, "It was not that this man sinned or his parents, comma, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him." Okay? So the answer is just what I said, right? It says, it was not this man who sinned. What is the reason? That the works of God might be made manifest in him. Okay, but that was the church fathers putting that comma in there. It can also be read in this way. It was not this man that sinned or his parents. Period. New sentence. But that the works of God might be made manifest in him, we must work the works of him who sent me. Now we have a different meaning. Because now Jesus is saying it's not him or the parents that sinned. Period. And then he makes another statement. But that the works of God might be made manifest in him, let us work the works of him who sent me. So now this speaks, if we put the punctuation in the other way, now what it says, which is not wrong either, it says that in order that God's glory may be made manifest, we must do the work today and now. And that's an equally important point. If you want the will of God to come about, then you need to do something. You can't just sit and pray and not act. So here we have two distinct ways that through punctuation or not punctuating correctly, we can have two different meanings. One explaining how the man was born blind so that the will of God may be made manifest in him, which is fine. But equally so, if we put the punctuation in the other place, it can say that yes, we must do the will of God so that his will may be made manifest. So there must be work that is done. So this is why we have that prayer in here, because it is the church fathers who put the punctuation there so that we can figure out which is the right way to say this. And in this case, they have decided that the right way to say it is the first way. It was not this man that sinned or his parents, comma, but that the works of God might be made manifest in him. And then a new thought, we must work the works of him who sent me while it is day, so on and so forth. So I wanted to point out, I wanted to make a connection that these things that we say in the liturgy are not just idle thoughts for us just to have words. These are put there for a purpose. And this is an example of one of those purposes for the petitions that we hear during the liturgy.